Hello, and welcome to the Prodigal Life. I'm Deacon Harold, and I'm joined, as usual, by Nick and Ellen. And we are here to help you make a more deeper connection to your faith and your everyday life.
That's right, Deacon. And today we are doing part 2 with Danielle Bean. We heard her story in the last episode. Really neat stuff. We had really cool conversations about testimony and her journey, what it looks like to develop a testimony, discover your testimony if you never had some crazy conversion experience. Right. We talked about Catholic family. And today, Ellen, we are talking about...
Danielle has been doing this ministry for a long time. I'm just going to say it that way. And she has 10 books that have been published.
My goodness.
Amazing. She's had a blog when blogging was just getting to be a thing. She was like almost first on the scene with Catholic blogging. And now she has a podcast, and they're developing a community-based goodcatholic.com thing, and she's going to share all the things that she's doing. And basically, it's kind of like a second testimony because it's kind of your walk. You know what I mean? How did you get from books and blogging to where you are now? That would be great.
Okay.
Because I remember you back with Catholic Moms.
Yes.
And what's the other publication? You like the editor of a magazine?
I was publisher of Catholic Digest for many years.
Catholic Digest, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. That's right. Yeah.
So we got to hear about all
print
of
magazines.
that.
Whoever even heard of that, right? Like,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I look at all the different media that I've been blessed to be a part of, and I learned something from each of them, right? And all of these different experiences. And honestly, like if I look back to when Dan and I first got married, we've been married for 29 years now. Like I just wanted to get married and start a family. Like I wasn't looking to have any kind of career. I wasn't looking to work beyond having our kids. And it honestly wasn't until I was pregnant with our 5th that I started doing like freelance writing and just kind of getting into that world a little bit, just as an outlet for me. And that's when I had a brother who was working in tech. He still works in tech. And he was like, "Oh, I'll build you a website. Oh, you're going to have a book published. Okay, I'll build you a website to help you promote that." And I started, asking him like, what can I do on there? And I ended up asking him like, can you make a place where I can write a little something every day and it'll kind of get archived on the site, and it'll, and I just want to share a little something every day. And he's like, "Oh, sure, I'll build that." So then I was doing that online. Like this is back when, online was very first ever a thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember people would email me and be like, "Oh, hey, I really like your blog." And I was like, "What's a blog?" Like I was like blogging and I didn't know what a blog was, right? And so I go back that far. But I've always felt this compulsion to share my faith with other people. And as I was a wife and a mother, I really wanted to share that unique experience, which in the end is not so unique. Back in the day, I had a regular column with the National Catholic Register, and I would hear from women all the time. And honestly, like, that the number one thing they would tell me was, I thought I was the only one, who struggled in that way, or, and these weren't like really hard hitting columns. It was just everyday stuff and, just everyday kinds of struggles that I was sharing there. And yet I found there was this real need for connection among women who were experiencing, marriage and motherhood and living out their Catholic faith in that way. So I really just connected in that way with people. So connecting through writing, connecting through online writing, eventually led to magazine work. I did that for many years, right? We talked about Catholic Digest, and I loved everything that I got to learn about, printing publications. And I ended up, by the time I left there, it was a number of different magazines that I was publisher of, and really enjoyed that experience. But then I felt like it's time to get back to just the heart of why I started to share anything in the first place, right? Because you kind of get a level back. Like if you're like publishing something in print, and then by the time it reaches somebody, there's like a few steps in between, heart to heart. So that's when I launched the Girlfriends podcast, and I was really looking to connect with people on that personal level. Like back in the, the early golden years of blogging, like that connection with people was so important to me. And I really did find it again through podcasting. That led to other opportunities, like you mentioned, over at CatholicMom.com. I was blessed to be there for several years. And now the work that I'm doing at Good Catholic, it feels like a natural extension of that. It's the podcasting. It's also sharing through videos, sharing through live events online, all these new and innovative ways that we can interact. At the core, what we're trying to do is the same old thing, right? We're trying to connect with each other in a personal and meaningful way. We're trying to encourage each other. We're trying to inspire each other. We're trying to learn more about our Catholic faith and be reminded in the end that we're not alone in it. I think sometimes that's the most important thing that we can convey to ourselves or anybody else, is that all these ways that you're struggling, other people are struggling too. And, here is a community of people who believe like you do, who share your values and are willing to pray with and for you and support you in that important work that you're doing.
Beautiful.
So what got you inspired to write? Were you a English major or journalism major, and then kind of put that off when you were having kids, or this is something you just kind of picked up?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to be an English major, but then I veered away from that. I ended up being a sociology major, which is so funny because I'm probably the only sociology major on the planet who votes the way that I do, right? And here I am. But I went in that direction because I'm fascinated with people and I'm fascinated by culture, and there was a lot for me to learn there. But writing was always just a part of who I was. Like, I'm just a born communicator. I remember many years ago when I was in the 7th grade science fair, science was never my thing. And I put together this project, and it was the life cycle of gypsy moth caterpillars, like crazy, right? And I remember my mom was so unimpressed with my so-called like science project. She told me that morning as I'm going out the door, "Well, have fun at the science fair. You're not going to win anything." And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, great, but she, that was my mom, every bit a realist. And at that science fair, I remember the judges going around and like asking people questions about their different topics they had taken on and whatever. And I just realized as I was speaking to them, gosh, I know a lot about this. Like, I had actually like learned this stuff. And I talked to them for like 20 minutes straight, like giving them this presentation about the life cycle of the gypsy moth caterpillars. Well, I won first prize in that science fair. And
That's amazing.
I put that ribbon up to my mom and I was like, hey, I talked my way into this first prize ribbon. And, and that was really kind of, as you're a young adult and as you're kind of growing up, you get feedback from others, but you're also just kind of learning like, hey, what am I good at? Like, what are my skills? And like, how can I use those? And for sure, words was always a part of what I was, inspired to do. The ways that I was inspired to share. So for sure in the written word, it was always close to my heart, always something I just did. I just had, journals filled with writing years before I ever tried to publish anything. And then I did just feel this compulsion. Like I mentioned, I was pregnant with our 5th, that like one summer, my husband was a teacher back then. And every summer he'd take on a different like summer job to, kind of make ends meet. And he was working like late shifts. So he was coming home very late at night. So I found myself alone with these little kids who went to bed at like 7:30. That was, good old days like that. And I just really wanted to spend my time doing something. And that's when I felt like I could do a little bit of writing and see like if it can find a home in various places. And I can look back on that now and I can just see God's hand in it, that I didn't have any great aspiration of what I was going to do for work or career or how I was going to accomplish things in the media. But I did feel this drive to do this thing and to figure this out and to share my faith in this particular way, in ways that I never imagined. Doors opened up for me to do different kinds of things. I've been very blessed to have the opportunities that I've had. And I can see now that, God was part of all of that. I didn't know what the plan was, right? And I can look at that now and I share it with my young adult kids who are, still figuring out like, what is God going to have me do? And I think it's really about being open to what God might be calling you to do, but not that you have to have the next 20 years planned out, but like, how can you use your gifts right now? In what ways do you feel called to use your gifts right now to witness to others, to encourage and inspire others, to share your Catholic faith? There are plans that God has for you, and maybe you only know how to do it for the next 24 hours, but there really is a level of importance to being open to what God's calling you to do in that one little next step at a time, and not having to see the grand master plan. I still don't know how it's all going to work out, right? But just trusting day by day.
Right. What was your first book? So when did you write it, and what was the first book you ever published?
So my first book was published by Pauline Books and Media, and it was called My Cup of Tea, and it was published in 2015. And I absolutely loved that opportunity to, I kind of pulled together different writings that I had shared about faith and motherhood. And it was just a very personal kind of sharing, about what the things that were going on in my life and my faith and my family. And I recently revisited that because it went out of print with Pauline Books, and I was able to publish it again on my own through Amazon. You know how you can do that. And so I had set up the book to do that, but it was a really great opportunity for me to revisit that book and think, gosh, like as I'm reading it, wow, my life has changed, but also a lot has stayed the same. And kind of just thinking about that, the ways that our family has grown and changed through the years. And it ended up, I ended up writing a book called Giving Thanks and Letting Go, which was published by Ave Maria Press right in the pandemic. It came out in February, I think, of 2020. Yeah. And that book was sort of like a revisiting of those themes, years later, and in the ways that our family had kind of grown since that time. So really just a beautiful way to kind of revisit a similar theme, but from a different stage of life, and see, the more things change, the more they stay the same, but really reflecting on some of the gifts that God's given us here in our faith and family life.
Amen.
Wow.
Wow. That's great. It's some parallels. I mean, my first book came out in 2015, and one of my books was also by Ave Maria.
Oh, nice.
I don't have 10 like you. I only have 6.
You got to catch up, Deacon.
I have to catch up. I got 4 more books to write to catch up.
You can do it. You can do it.
She's going to outpace you, man.
But that's beautiful, especially when when you're writing and people can relate, not just to you, but like, oh my goodness, now I can see how I can have more meaning in my life. I can see how I can see what God's purpose is in my life now. And that's how God uses you as a tool. I tell people all the time, we're just instruments. God's a musician, and all we're doing by, as you said, Danielle, discovering our gifts and understanding how God is working our life to become finely tuned instruments in God's hands.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. You're reminding me of, I think it was Saint Mother Teresa who said, I'm a tiny pencil in God's hand, right? That with which he writes what he chooses. And that's what we all should be aiming to be, right? I like your analogy with the instruments, because that's ultimately the ultimate honesty with ourselves, is that we are all weak and helpless creatures, and it pleases God to use us to do great works of glory, but we need to be open to that, and not with any sense of our own personal accomplishment in it, but being open to what he wants to work in us and through us.
Yeah, it makes me think, even those who are not faithful, even those who are not Catholic or Christian, every human being is an instrument of that divine musician. But we are not allowing ourselves, when we aren't faithfully, devoutly Catholic or Christian, we aren't allowing ourselves to be turned over to the hands of this musician that is God. And it reminds me, there's this piece of art in the bathroom at my mom's house, and it's an image of like a big ship, a sailboat, and it says a ship that is at bay is safe, but that's not what ships were made for.
Oh, I love that.
And it makes me think of that too, because it's like everyone is an instrument, but you were made to be played by the divine musician.
Yeah, you have to cast, pull up the anchor and cast yourself out and see what happens, and just trust God that it's going to go together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something wonderful about retrospect too, being able to go back and look and say, hey, wait a minute. Like you said, going back and looking at your first book all these years later and say, hey, wait a minute, and just see how God has been working and building in your life, and seeing how one thing led to another. Because sometimes when you're going through something at the time, you're like, what is going on right now? I don't understand this. But then you look back in retrospect, like, now it makes perfect sense why I had to go through that, because now I see what God was doing.
Exactly.
And that's I think books help people to capture those moments in their own lives, so that's a beautiful thing. So where do you see things going for you now? I mean, now we're post-pandemic, right? And you're doing a lot to build online community. So where do you kind of see at least what you believe right now, your vision is what God wants to do with you now.
Yeah. Right now, I'm really focused on building online community and really exploring what that can look like. What can we do online together in building faith communities, especially? And this is something very close to my heart. You know, like I mentioned, I've always been looking to make that personal connection with people, and the means by which you make that connection change, right? Like the mission doesn't change, but the way that you connect with people changes with shifting technology and cultural differences. And, you know, you mentioned the pandemic, and one of the great gifts that kind of came out of the pandemic was everybody got a real crash course in using technology, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
Even grandmothers were like figuring out how to use Zoom and how to connect in these ways. And it's really actually been a gift that the average knowledge of how to connect in these ways has been raised in our culture, because there's a different level of comfort with connecting with people through things like Zoom, through things like online, you know, communications and social media that wasn't there before. So I think taking advantage of that is really part of what we're called to do as a church, to connect with people in their living rooms, in their homes. You're never going to replace in-person connection. And I would never attempt to do that. And I would never encourage anybody to completely replace in-person connections with, you know, technology. But that doesn't mean there isn't a place for technology, because these new ways of connecting that we have, especially through live interaction, I love the opportunity to share through a live video and, you know, take people's questions and just really respond, you know, in a live interactive way in real time like that. That it's so powerful. And, you know, you may not have, like here in New Hampshire, it's not a very Catholic culture, you know, where I live. It's not a very Catholic culture. We raised 8 kids. We homeschooled. We were definitely the weirdos in our entire neighborhood. You know, got to a certain comfort level with that. But we're not finding that community right outside our door, right? To encourage us and to educate us in our Catholic faith. So being able to make those connections online. I might connect with somebody who's in Nebraska or somebody who's in the Philippines, you know, that you can make those kinds of global interactions possible in ways that are truly meaningful. Even back in the earlier days of the internet, I remember I was a part of different forums and communities and Facebook groups and those kinds of things that really were, as I look back, a true means of support to me in my marriage and motherhood. Like I truly got to know those people. Many of them I've met in person. You know, I've maintained friendships and relationships outside of cyberspace. And that's been such a gift to me. And so I know the power of those kinds of connections. And I also know the need for it. I know the need that I felt during certain times when I didn't feel like there was anybody else who could understand exactly what I was going through, but I could make that connection online. And so I'm really focused right now in my work and in my ministry on finding new ways to connect people, to really build community online, authentic community that is meaningful and truly supportive of people in their faith and family lives.
Yeah, and there's so much value in innovating in that space, specifically for Catholics, because the current offerings, the platforms that are out there are such treacherous territory where you're not just getting that. Like maybe there is a very great, very beneficial Facebook group, but to be in that Facebook group, it means you have a Facebook account, and it means when you log in, you're seeing everything Facebook has to offer, not just that group. You know, so yeah, there's tremendous value in innovating in the way that you are. So yeah, thank you for leading the charge there.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be doing it. I don't know all that God has planned yet, but we're really working hard behind the scenes over at goodcatholic.com to put together an offering that's going to be truly impactful in people's lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you talked about the international reach, which is many people experience that. I was just a few months ago, I was on a speaking tour and ended up in Australia. And Sonia Corbett, because we wrote a book together, joined me for the last week of the tour. We did a series of talks on our book together.
I love Sonia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's awesome.
She's awesome.
It was basically a Bible study book that we wrote. And but to see people who have been following her actually meet her in person, and they were in tears, and there were hugs, and I'm like, wow, you know. So just to see the impact of an online community, you know, and there's people that were moms that couldn't get out to live events because they're busy taking care of kids. You have some people who are single. You have people maybe who are a little bit older, or have a physical disability that they can't get out and do things. So this is a really important way for them to still feel connected, to feel part of something. And who's the demographic? Who you're trying to reach with Good Catholic?
Yeah, I mean, our current audience that we're reaching right now with the courses and the different offerings we have online is probably older women for the most part. But with the new offerings we have, we're seeing lots of younger people coming in. We're seeing people raising families coming in for sure. Equal parts men and women. What we're doing, because, it's not just me and my ministry. In my own personal ministry, I am 90% of the time speaking to women, right? Speaking to the hearts of women, especially moms. But over at Good Catholic, we have the opportunity, because it's a larger platform, to host people from various perspectives and people with various kinds of expertise that can speak to specific different kinds of audiences. Maybe people who are actively raising their kids in the faith, maybe people who are, on the brink of retirement, maybe people who are like active in their parishes and building programs for faith formation, or, then ultimately our goal for me personally, but also for the organization at large, and then for the church, is to be reaching those people that are on the outer edges of their faith, right? We want to be communicating to them, drawing them in and into a way of interacting with their fellow Catholics in a way that's truly going to be meaningful to them. But that means what we need to be offering to somebody who's in that place is very different from what you need to be offering to somebody who's already taken all the courses and, they're buying the latest Scott Hahn book and all of that. Like, that's
levitating when they pray the rosary.
Yes. That they have a different need. And, there's a place to be meeting the needs of both of those people. But having a larger platform is really a useful tool when you're looking to kind of target different audiences with different needs that are coming to a community with, their own particular needs and struggles. And we want to be responsive to that.
100%. The one thing that popped in my head when you were talking back about the children and your fifth child, when when everything started, can you speak? Because I think a lot of people, they're watching, they're like, how did she do that? I mean, you have 8 children, and how did you do that? Like, some of the struggles associated, and I'm sure your husband was very supportive and your family, but the balance, you know what I mean? How do you find that balance to serve Christ and do what you're doing and have, some people have 3 children and it's hard to even figure out how to do the laundry.
Well, that's an important question, because some people say you can't have children because you have to seek your career and children get in the way. But obviously that's not the case for you. And
tell us about some of the experiences trying to do that, and what it worked through.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could tell everybody the perfect way to do it, but I wasn't always perfect at doing it. And but I like to use that word balance, because this is so key, right? This is the thing that we all want. I just want balance in my life, right? We talk about all of our different priorities: my marriage, my work, my kids, my own prayer life, my social obligations. We all just want balance. And I think it's really important when we talk about balance to talk about it not being static, because we tend to think balance, my life's going to be in perfect balance, and I'm, my work and my life and my kids and my marriage, and my family, and it's just going to be freeze frame. I think about the times when the kids were all little and we'd be having people over, the frenzy in the house, clean up the house and get the kids all clean, and everybody's sitting on the couch, everybody's clean and the house is ready, and dinner's in the oven, but I'd be freeze, nobody move, this is it, take the picture now. But real balance isn't like that. If you think about when you're balancing, picture standing on a ball and trying to balance, you're going to be in constant movement in one direction, in the other direction. And that's what balance really looks like. When you're focused on one thing, you're necessarily not focused on the other thing, right? And it's about setting up your life in accordance with what your priorities are. So there are methodical ways of doing this. You can find a book on, written by pretty much anybody who will kind of walk you through that. But I think it's really important for every one of us to pause every once in a while and say, what are my life priorities? What should I be spending time on every day? And for some of us, that is going to include work. But for some women, it's going to be, you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, but you're still balancing different priorities. So what are those? And then look at how you're actually spending your time, and do those line up? Do those generally line up? And having a time and a place that's set aside for a particular thing, whether for me, for years, I would work early in the morning getting up at 4:30 and getting some hours in before the kids are out of bed, or
Right.
late at night. Like I spent many years sleep deprived, and I kind of thrived on that. I don't recommend that on an ongoing basis, but finding the space in the for that, if you do believe it is a priority for you, not everybody needs to be doing that. So it's the kind of thing I encourage people that like, there's no one right way to do it. There's no one right way to be balanced and have that kind of perfect balance in your faith and your family life and your work life. But bring this to God. Be prayerfully deciding these things, what you're going to take on, what kinds of obligations you can reasonably take on. Be talking with your husband about it for sure. Be sure that you're talking with him and you're both on the same page about it. Because like you mentioned, important source of support. You definitely need to be on the same page. And then as the kids grow older, you need to be involving them in the conversation, like whatever obligation it was, whether it was like if I was going to travel for a work trip or if I was going to consider taking on a new freelance job in some way, or if one of the kids was going to, be part of the play and need, rides to practice or whatever, that recognizing that all as a family, it costs all of us in some way. We're all participating in that in some way. And, deciding, is it worth what it costs us? And, the number one thing I tell people to be stingy with is their calendar. And in the world today, there's so many things that are just going to vie to fill up your calendar with stuff that you don't truly value and isn't truly important to you. So take a hard look at your calendar and prayerfully decide together with your spouse, like, what are the things that we need to be focused on? And then you can begin plugging those things into your calendar.
Yeah, it's about living with intentionality, not letting life happen accidentally.
Yeah, I spent years being just reactive, right? I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like get up in the morning and just start putting out fires, but that's no way to live, and that is not God's plan for sure.
Right.
No, 100% not. 100% not. So how do we reach you? How do the fans get in touch with you? If you want to list off all the books you've written, that would be great, because you never know. One of them may catch somebody's. Well, you never know. Somebody might hear a title.
Yeah,
I'll let you just. You can just go to DanielleBean.com. Just click on the books tab.
Nice.
Yeah.
The books tab, and she'll do that. And but how do they reach you? And are you still doing speaking? Like if somebody wanted you to come and do a talk somewhere? Okay.
Yeah,
great.
I'm a lot more discerning about speaking that I'll take on at this point. Like it has to be the right fit, and it has to be the right timing. And but for sure, I'm still always open to hearing from people who are interested in booking me for speaking. There's information that you can get over at DanielleBean.com for that. But ultimately, I want people to head over to goodcatholic.com and check out what we're offering there, the different kinds of live interactions. And I'm just super excited about what we are building there and the authentic ways that we can connect and communicate with one another inside of our Catholic faith, ways that are encouraging. Like, you're not alone in this. We're in this together, and we all need that reminder sometimes, but also access to experts, people who have experience, people who can share, theology or philosophy, or just practically like how to get the kids out the door to school in the morning, or like we're talking about this life work balance. There are people who have a wealth of experience to share with us. And so building the community that we're building over at goodcatholic.com is part of how we're looking to meet that need for people.
100%. And then your podcast is called Girlfriends.
It is.
How many years has it been?
It's been 7 years. Yeah,
wow.
I know.
Excellent.
And what a joy it's been. I think back to when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. And in a lot of ways, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm loving it anyway. It is totally fun to do, and just a really beautiful way to connect with people on a personal level. So that's Girlfriends. You can connect with that through goodcatholic.com as well.
Perfect. So, well, thank you so much. We all really appreciate your talk.
Thank you so much. It's been such a joy talking with you all.
Thank you, Danielle. We thank our guest very much for being on today. And for all our viewers, if you are interested in more content like this, please try to sponsor us or get involved some way with Awaken Catholic. And Deacon is going to tell you how.
Just go to prodigallife.com, and on there you'll see a donation button. We've tied the different levels of giving and patronage to the different hierarchies of angels, so you can become an angel investor in the Prodigal Life.
Amen. So, all right. Well, God bless you all, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe, or even leave a comment. We thank all of our sponsors, anonymous or otherwise, for supporting this show. We currently get over 2.2 million impressions per month across all our shows. If you want to get your brand or company out to more people, consider becoming a sponsor. Contact info@awakencatholic.org to get more information on how you can promote yourself while supporting us.